Hi everybody. The other day when we were talking about wind and waves and weather, I jumped over paddling into the waves or quartering into the waves a little bit, and I feel bad about that, so I thought I'd come back and give you a little bit more information. So there's two ways when we're paddling into or with the waves that you can move yourself forward. One, you can go directly into the waves, or you can offset a little bit and have what's called quartering. So you're going just a quarter or a third into the waves. There's advantages to both and there's some disadvantages to both of them. So I thought I would just give you both of those. The screen that I've got here right now shows going directly into the waves where the wavelength is about the same length of the canoe or maybe a little bit shorter. And in that case, when you're paddling into the waves, you paddle up onto that wave, you come across the top, and then the front of the canoe will take some air, and then it'll come crashing down into the next valley of the waves, between the valley between the two waves, and you may actually wind up having the bow of your canoe, if it's fairly narrow, submerging into the wave in front of you. So this winds up going directly into the waves, winds up being a very up and down and rough and wet. You wind up coming out of the water, so the bow person may find it hard to paddle at some points, and because you're balancing on either the top of the waves or between two waves, you can wind up with some stability issues as well. Overall, paddling directly into these waves that are about the size of or the length of your canoe is probably a little bit more stable, but it does mean your ride will be much rougher and much wetter. You'll get a lot more water coming into the canoe. The alternative that we have is something called quartering. So you offset the direction that you're paddling from the waves just a little bit, and essentially that makes the wavelength longer. That has a huge advantage where you're not coming up on top of the wave and crashing down and coming up on top and crashing down again. So it makes for a much smoother, a much drier, a much more comfortable outing in that regards. It does have some problems. Every time when you come up onto the wave to begin with, the wind as well as that wave will tend to push the bow off the wave, so it'll fall off the wave and push you into a broach position or a broach direction, which can be very dangerous with the rolling that happens. So you need to be able to account for that as you're going up into the wave. When you come back down on the other side, the back of the canoe will slide off the wave again, so you'll wind up really quartering. You have to adjust for what the wind and the wave is doing. Unless you're really comfortable doing this, it can be quite hard to do. So there is an advantage to quartering. It makes the wavelength longer. It does make things drier, less splash, less likely to bring water into your canoe. But you do need to be a much stronger paddler, or a much more skilled paddler. The strength is less. Some people find quartering, in sailing you could call it tacking, to be much faster as well. Going directly into the wind can be slow, mostly because you're going directly into the wind, you're up and down and up and down. Tacking just takes you a little bit off, but you do have the additional time to go back and forth. So when I was talking about quartering, this is what I was getting at, and you'll see this in a lot of literature. A lot of people will talk in waves, you quarter. It's good advice, but you do need to be able to make sure that you can steer the canoe fairly well, because the waves are going to be pushing you around. The other thing you have to remember is as soon as you start quartering, then the wind is going to be taking you sideways as well. We talked about wind ferries and dealing with crosswind, and that may not be something that you want to be pushed downwind as well. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more information on what I was talking about when I was mentioning quartering and paddling into the waves or paddling diagonal to the waves, and some of the advantages and disadvantages. Thanks. Bye. So when you're dealing with waves, one of the big problems that we run into, the safest way to go, really, is going directly into the waves. So if I draw a wave here, like this, and you've got your canoe riding along, it comes up over the wave, goes down. Notice here, when it comes down off the wave, it has to start going up again on the other side. So if you've got a wavelength that's about the length of the canoe, which it is here, you're going to go down, and then you're going to get really unbalanced because you're on the front and the back of the wave, and you're going to go over here and you're going to go up the wave,
and then you're going to come down and go back into that wave in front of you again. So when you come down here, it's going to go splash, and you're going to get soaked, and you're going to get pushed into this wave and maybe submerge there, and then come up again through an unstable part, and you're going to be on top, and you're going to be on top, and it's a little bit unstable here, and then you're going to crash down into the wave again and maybe submerge again. So wouldn't it be great if we could take this wave, and instead of having it this length, is if we could have the wavelength the same size but much longer. So here we come down that wave, we ride through, and yeah, you still have to go up a little bit, but it's a much smoother ride and not quite as stable, not quite as unstable. So what way can we use to extend that wave out? Well, the easy way to do that, I'm just going to erase this. And I'm going to draw wavelengths across here. So there's the top of one wave, there's the top of another wave, and the top of another wave. So when I'm going, this is the same kind of thing. I'm on the top of the wave. It goes up here, crashes into the next wave, up here, crashes into the next wave. If I want to lengthen that wave out, it's called quartering. So now, instead of being one length, I'm going to quarter into the waves. So this wavelength now, instead of being a canoe length long, is actually quite a bit more than a canoe length long. And we're going across it this way, so it really levels out all those big ups and downs. There is a problem though. As we come over this wave here, we come up and we go down again. As we come up again, the wind and the wave, the front of the canoe is going to try and slip off that wave this way. So you're going to broach, turn sideways, and the wind is also going to push you that way. We come up over the wave, we go down, and the back end now slides off that wave, and it's going to try and broach you as well. So quartering waves, you really need to be able to keep going up and down and keep that angle as you're going up and down. So that's what quartering is. That's why it's a good thing, but that's also why it can be a problem, because both the wind and the wave can force you into that broach position, which becomes very unstable then as waves go by. That would be quartering.